What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football, and today we are discussing West Virginia. If you like this content, please subscribe, leave a like. Those things help us a ton. Small channel like this, even a like is going to get us in front of more viewers. So thank you if you've done that. It does mean a lot. And if you have any feedback, please leave a comment below. That will help the channel as well, whether it's West Virginia specific or something else you'd like to see. But let's talk West Virginia last year before we get into this year's stats. Here are the efficiency metrics from last year. Overall, it was a little bit of a disappointing season for West Virginia, which makes sense. They now have the coaching change, bringing back Rich Rod. But this was a team that had aspirations to not just make a bowl, but potentially contend for the Big 12. And they finish 6-7 overall. So the coaching change happens. Neil Brown is gone. And a lot of it was defensive issues. As you can see, outside the top 100 in most areas outside of pure run defense. Unfortunately, that run defense didn't matter a ton because their coverage unit was another bottom 5 in the country as they were in 2023. So you could just throw the ball right over the top of West Virginia. Offensively, they were pretty good. I don't think they quite lived up to expectation. And a lot of that was just a slight step back from quarterback Garrett Green. He had more turnovers than 2023, and that was really the end of the story. The offensive line was a top 10 unit. They had great running backs in Jaheim White and CJ Donaldson. Receiving game was a little up and down, largely because of injury, but it was the defense that held this team back. And that's how you get to a 6-7 record, and that's how you get to a coaching change because it was another year of underachieving. So Rich Rod comes back, Rich Rodriguez, previous West Virginia coach, one of the, at least in recent memory, one of the best coaches they've had. He brought West Virginia to an 86-50 record, but that was just getting better and better and better over time. He had 3 double-digit win seasons. Those were his final 3 years with West Virginia. Outside of his first season, he never had a year without at least 8 wins. After that, definitely flew too close to the sun, kind of ruined his career for a little bit, and then had to rebuild up with an FCS program, Jacksonville State, who luckily transitioned to the FBS. Brought them to an 18-9 record within the FBS. So it's been better for Rich Rod lately, just at lower levels of competition. Now he is going to take over West Virginia in a different era, so we'll see what he can do. There is no OC on staff. That is because Rodriguez will be calling the plays as he usually does. His offense uses a dual threat quarterback. At least that's when it works best. They use a lot of QB options, zone read stuff. It's a spread attack. You're going to see a lot of receivers on the field at the same time. But then it is going to be very run heavy out of that. They're going to use one of the fastest tempos in the entire country as they have before. Jacksonville State did that last year. Defensive coordinator, this was a good get for them. Zach Alley comes over. He was the previous Oklahoma defensive coordinator, and that defense was awesome. Many were surprised by his departure, and I was as well, but he has continuity with Rich Rodriguez. He's previously coached for Jacksonville State. He called this program a sleeping giant, and he's really experienced nothing but success in his 2 previous stops. So I think that's a fantastic hire for West Virginia on defense. Overall, the staff is looking pretty good for this West Virginia team. Let's look at talent acquisition. It's going to be at least nuanced because of the transition in coaching. They already lost 25% of their current class. That's just what happens when you undergo a coaching change and you play in a very specific scheme like the Rodriguez scheme. Hopefully he can get West Virginia recruiting a little better. They sort of have been a middling Big 12 team, and then they took a step back this year. I would attribute that mainly to the coaching staff, but there's not too much to say on this. They're bringing in over 40 transfers. That's going to at least replace some of the players they've lost in the last couple cycles. We need a couple more years, I think, before we can really evaluate this. The portal cycle they bring in is 30th overall, so won't belabor this point. It's just going to take Rodriguez some time on the talent acquisition front. Let's take a look at this roster. Here's our 2 deep depth charts. This is available in the Discord if you would like to take a look. Link is below. We have the 2 deep depth chart, all the players, what year they are in school, how many snaps they've played the last 2 years, what recruiting ranking they were in terms of a star, and then a value score where 50 is a projected average player, and then it goes all the way up to elites and down pretty low if you have not played much or you've played poorly. It looks first at your recruitment, and then the more you played, the less it factors in recruiting, the more it takes into account on-field play. At quarterback, they lose longtime starter Garrett Green. They move to Nico Marchiol. He's in a QB battle with Jalen Henderson, the Texas A&M transfer. Starting with Marchiol, he's been the longtime backup. He's a former four-star, 6'2", 223. He's played 381 snaps the last 2 years. Over his career, he has a 58% completion percentage for 742 yards. That's 6.1 yards per attempt. 8 touchdowns, 5 picks, 6 big-time throws, 6 turnover-worthy plays. But that's through his career. If you look at just the incremental improvement year over year, it is definitely there. Last year's completion percentage jumped to 66%, 7.8 yards per attempt. And he had to play a little bit because Garrett Green kept getting banged up. He has decent rushing numbers as well, which is very important for the Rodriguez offense. 285 career rushing yards, 3.4 yards per carry. Some people might think, okay, Henderson profiles as the better dual threat. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think it's closer than you might think. Over their careers, Marchiol averages more rushing yards per carry than Henderson does. The big problem to his game, at least to this point, he takes a lot of sacks, 13 of them. That's a 29.5% pressure to sack ratio. With Marchiol, we just kind of need the feel in the pocket to be a little bit better, but that's not unique to him. Henderson has the same problem. Speaking of which, the second part of this battle, Jalen Henderson, the Texas A&M transfer, he's 6'3", 220. He briefly played in 2023 when all of their quarterbacks went down. Wegman, it was a disaster. His career completion percentage is 68, 715 yards that season. That was 9.2 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks, 4 big-time throws, 3 turnover-worthy plays, 2.5 yards per carry, 26% pressure to sack ratio. So I think I would give the slight leg up to Marchiol, but I don't think this is set in stone, and this battle is going to persist through the summer. Both of them have some experience. Both of them have their limitations. At running back, they lose C.J. Donaldson to Ohio State, but they do return Jaheim White, who's been awesome, 5'7", 195 pounds. He's rushed for 1,686 yards in his career. That is 6.6 yards per carry, 24 catches. 1,005 of those yards came after contact. He's 85 missed tackles. I mean, this dude is an absolute stud and a fantastic place to start your backfield. He's a little smaller, so I think using him in at least some form of a committee, even if it's like a 75-25 split, is probably wise just to keep him fresh. Their only other player of note is Dior Hubbard, at least among the incumbents. They bring in a ton of transfers, as is the case almost every position. Jalen Knighton from SMU, Ty Edwards from Northern Iowa, Cannon Katzler from Ferris State, and L.J. Turner from Catawba from the D2 ranks. Catawba? I always get that one wrong. Starting with Knighton, former Miami four-star, played with SMU the last 2 years, got hurt last year, but he's a smaller back, 5'10", 185. In 2023, he rushed for 745 yards. That was 5.5 yards per carry, 13 catches, decent efficiency. The FCS guys, Ty Edwards, he originally played at UTSA, had to transfer down to Northern Iowa. He's a bigger back at 6'4", 230. So a potential complement to Jaheim White just via size. He rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, 6.4 yards per carry. He was elite in the FCS, but he couldn't get on the field at UTSA. So what does that say about him? Katzler was the same thing. He's 5'9", 195. Originally played at Washington State. Had to transfer down to D2 Ferris State to eventually rush for 1,238 yards at 8.8 yards per carry. What does that say about him? Turner from Catawba, he rushed for a lot of yards. I mean, 1,961 in 3 seasons. Smaller back at 5'9", 190. He's played for the RB's coach before, so that's, I think, why he's here. They also bring in kind of a wild card in Sincere Bowers from JUCO. I do not know how this depth chart shakes out, but I think you have to just be betting on, obviously, Jaheim White, but I would bet on Jalen Knight as the running back too, maybe with Ty Edwards playing as like a big goal line back because of his size. This position, I think, should be fine. Wide receiver, they lose a couple guys of note. Hudson Clement is at Illinois, probably your biggest loss. But they have some guys coming back. Rodney Gallagher returns. He's a former four-star, 5'10", 178, caught 26 balls for 288 yards last year as their main slot receiver. He could play on the boundary, I suppose, 1.12 yards per route, but I think the slot is a good position for him. They also get Jaden Bray back. He was hurt immediately last year, played with Oklahoma State before that. He's 6'2", 205, 30 catches for 382 yards, played out wide a lot at Oklahoma State, 97% of the time. 1.32 yards per route. I think he should be just fine out there. They also get back Preston Fox, a former walk-on who retired and then decided to play this year again. After the spring, he had 12 catches last year. He's 5'10", 191. Had a better season in 23 where he had 26 catches for 366 yards. I think it'll be a factor. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up coming off the bench and plays a rotational role because there's so many transfers here. Instead of listing them off, I'm just going to go one by one. The most likely to play, I think, is Cam Vaughn, 6'2", 190, out of Jacksonville State. He had 48 catches, 803 yards. Played on the perimeter, 3.21 yards per route. If you made me just pick the starters for this group, I would assume Gallagher in the slot, Cam Vaughn on the boundary, with Jaden Bray on the boundary. Then I would think Fox plays a rotational role. I think some of the other transfers do as well. Oren Singleton from Eastern Michigan is probably your backup slot. He's 5'9", 164. Originally played with Akron, then transferred down to JUCO. Came back up to Eastern Michigan where he caught 65 balls last year for 639 yards. Christian Hamilton from North Carolina, a former four-star, I think will back up one of the boundary receivers. 6'1", 190. Only 10 catches through 2 seasons, but he's a very good recruit. And then some deeper depth guys that maybe jump up. Jeff Weimer from Idaho State. He originally played at JUCO. Actually was at UNLV before that JUCO. Then he had to transfer to JUCO. Subsequently went over 1,000 yards with Idaho State. We'll see about that. I mean, that's kind of the case with a lot of these guys. Bowie and McCants, they're two transfers that come over from Jacksonville State. I don't think they see much time. Bowie barely played. And then Jordan McCants, he did play a decent amount. He played 422 snaps. He just didn't play well. His yards per route was 0.88, and he dropped 3 of his 26 targets. I don't think we really see much of him. A couple other deeper guys, Justin Smith-Brown from South Carolina State, 763 yards for him. He's a boundary receiver. Logan Ramper from Slippery Rock, same thing, 748 yards. I don't think these guys are playing much. And Chris Trow from Youngstown State, 409 yards. These are just deep players, I think, that fill out your depth. Tight end. Oh, I guess to sum up wide receiver, I think the wide receiver position is pretty good. You return 2 of your top guys. You add some quality transfers. You say what you want about the depth. Justin Smith-Brown, Logan Ramper, Cyrus Straw. I don't think they play a lot, but they've played before, and these guys are going to fill out like your wide receiver 6 through 9. So having proven production in that part of your roster is very good. Tight end, they lose Cole Taylor. He's a big loss. They do add Grayson Barnes from Northern Illinois, Jacob Barrick, from Jacksonville State, and Ryan Ward from North Carolina. Barnes, I think, is going to be a receiving threat, a receiving specialist. He's 6'5", 225, originally played at JUCO. Since he's been at Northern Illinois, he caught 55 balls for 764 yards and 9 scores. That was in 2 years. Played in the slot a lot, too. Very good pass catcher, slightly below average blocker. He's definitely going to have packages. Barrick is 6'3", 230. He was basically a blocker, so the exact opposite of Barnes. But he is not much of a receiver. When you see him, it's probably going to be in line. He's 230, though, so I really question, can he play in the Big 12 at that size? And I'm not sure. Outside of that, Ward, he's a player that's just played 8 snaps. He's a redshirt freshman. And then I guess Greg Genros is still with the team. He's yet to play a snap, but he's one of the higher recruits that remains. Tight end is sort of up and down. I'm not sure what you're going to get. West Virginia's offensive line loses everybody. This was a top 10 unit. So it's, first of all, they're not going to be a top 10 unit this year. However, I don't think they're going to be bad. At tackle, and these guys are going to rotate left and right, and I'm not sure who's going to actually play these positions, but they have a lot of candidates. The transfers they bring in include Michael Clay from North Alabama, Tykees Crawford from Arkansas, Malik Agbo from Texas. Clay started and played over 1,000 snaps the last 2 years with North Alabama, only 14 pressures allowed. He was light, 275, but he's allegedly climbed to 300 pounds. That was his biggest limitation. He's a candidate. Crawford is a former 4-star, played at Arkansas most recently. Only 10 snaps last year, but he was hurt. 331 snaps in 23. Good pass blocker, only 8 pressures allowed in 23. He's 6 career starts. He's a candidate. Agbo's another former 4-star. He played with Texas. He's 170 snaps through 3 years. His game was pretty good. He just played behind elite players on that Texas O-line. There have been some reports that Agbo could play guard there as well. So the transfer crop just has a starter from the FCS and 2 former 4-stars, which is quality. Then they bring in, or at least they already brought in, former Jacksonville State transfer Xavier Bosley, who sat the bench last year. But he started with Jacksonville State and Rich Rod in 2023, where he had strong numbers, 14 pressures allowed, good run blocker. And then Nick Crahey is probably your best incumbent, 30 snaps to his name through 2 years. That's going to be your tackle group. Who starts out of that group, I'm not sure. I would personally go with Crawford and Ogbo for their potential, given their recruiting. But don't be surprised if it's Bosley, former starter, the FCS kid. Not sure. At center, they have 3 options. Carson Lee comes in from Eastern Michigan, Robbie Martin from NC State, and Landon Livingston is an incumbent. Lee's probably going to start here. He started for 2 years in the MAC, spent the spring with Mississippi State, and then transferred out to come here. He originally began his career with Colorado, but he was good in the MAC when he had to transfer down and then play. 11 QB hurries, no sacks or hits on almost 700 snaps. That's fantastic. Now we just need to bring the MAC play up to the Big 12. Robbie Martin from NC State's a redshirt freshman, only 3 snaps. Livingston is a redshirt junior. He was up and down on his 125 snaps, but he's been with West Virginia. We'll see if he can get on the field or at least practice 2 deep. I think Lee's going to start. At guard, another slew of transfers. Walter Youngbear from Tulsa, Kimo Macanello from LSU, Aiden Bustle from Tennessee, Just Iasosa from Oklahoma, Wyatt Minor from Youngstown State, Donovan Haslam from Austin Peay. Youngbear started for Tulsa. He has good pass blocking numbers, 14 pressures, 1 sack, on nearly 900 snaps. Needs to work on his run blocking, but he's a solid. Macanello is a 3-star from LSU, 63 snaps to his name. Aiden Bustle is a redshirt sophomore with 62 snaps from Tennessee. I think Macanello and Bustle are probably going to compete for this other guard spot outside Walter Youngbear, but Cooper Young is an incumbent. He has 22 snaps. He's someone who's kind of a dark horse to potentially get on the field with West Virginia. Iasosa, the Oklahoma transfer, he's another dark horse. He's yet to play a snap, but getting recruited by Oklahoma is definitely a feather in his cap. The other guys I don't think play much. Depth pieces, Minor, the Youngstown State transfer, haven't seen much of him. Haslam played 622 snaps for Austin Peay, where he was a good run blocker. Decent pass blocker, too. Only 1 sack allowed. But, I mean, these are FCS guys. I don't know who is going to fill out this unit, but luckily for them, it's a combination of players who've accrued a lot of experience at low levels of competition combined with some highly recruited players coming down. I think the unit will be above average. I just don't think they climb to their top 10 mark from last year, but that was never going to be the case anyway. Defense. Off the edge, they lose Tyron Bradley and TJ Jackson. They bring in a lot of transfers. Jamori Robinson from UTSA, originally a JUCO guy, but he had 48 pressures last year, elite run defense, 43 tackles, 10 and a half sacks, and 17 tackles for loss. Jamori Robinson probably going to start here. They get Eddie Kelly from Missouri. He's well-traveled, played at USF, Georgia Tech, Missouri the last 3 years. In rotation, in the SEC, he had 11 pressures and good run defense. He probably is your other edge. But don't count out guys like Devin Grant, originally a Colorado recruit before he goes down to Incarnate Word for 2 years. 31 pressures last year, 546 snaps. He's awesome. They also have Braden Siders from Wyoming. He got hurt in week 9, but he's a 3-year starter for Wyoming. He had 8 sacks in 2022. He's never quite gotten back to those numbers. But we've seen elite play from him in the Mountain West. This edge group is pretty good. I think they're improved from last year, believe it or not. Inside, they basically are just looking at incumbents. Actually, there's a couple other depth pieces on the edge that might play. Curtis Jones Jr., Adam Tomsick, and then freshman Wilnerson Telemak has been getting a lot of praise. Just names to know. Defensive tackle, they don't bring in many transfers. They're standing on business, and they have some rare returning production. Edward Vesterinen is back after playing 46 snaps in a week 2 injury, but he played 518 snaps in 2023. Very good against the run, so Vesterinen being back is solid. Hammond Russell played 325 snaps. Good run defender at 308 pounds. Asani Redwood is back after 372 snaps, but he was light at 290, and he was below average across the board. They also have redshirt sophomore Corey McIntyre, who could be in the 2 deep. They have a 4-star freshman in Taylor Brown, who could be in the 2 deep. The defensive line, I think, is going to be just fine. Linebacker, they lose Trey Lathan and Josiah Trotter. They get back 282 snaps from former Ohio State 4-star Reed Carrico. He started the final 3 games. He didn't play a ton, but he was good when he did. 54 tackles. Biggest concern is coverage. 15 catches on 17 targets isn't ideal, but he should play. Transfers Chase Wilson, Ben Bogle, Ashton Woods, and John Lewis enter the program. Wilson comes from Colorado State. He was a 2-year starter there. Second on the team in tackles in both years with 98 and 107. Decent in coverage, 77% completion percentage, 2 picks, 2 PBUs. I think he starts opposite Carrico, but I wouldn't rule out some of the other guys. Bogle is from Southern Illinois. Only started last year, above average player, but I don't think he starts. He's been running with the ones, which I think is probably a mistake, unless he really is that good. John Lewis comes from Mississippi State. He's a 4-star who's never quite lived up to his expectations. 365 snaps through 4 years. He's been pretty bad out there. So I don't think we see much of him. And then Ashton Woods from North Carolina. He's a 3-star redshirt freshman, only 2 snaps to his name. They also get back Ben Cutter, who's played a decent amount the last 2 years, 686 snaps, but he's been awful. I don't think they want to play him. Linebacker at the very worst, I think is neutral, and there's a chance it's a little bit better. Secondary, this was the worst secondary in the Power 4 last year. They lose their entire DB room. That's not saying much. Ton of transfers. On the boundary, I think most likely to start is Michael Coach Jr. from Nevada, originally of JUCO. Elite season last year. 45% completion, 328 yards, 4 picks, 9 PBUs. I think he's locked in. The other boundary corner is more up for grabs. Derek Carter Jr. from Jacksonville State comes in. He was originally a starter in 2023 before he was benched last year. Only started the final 2 games. He was good when he was out there, just wasn't out there a lot. Jason Chambers from Appalachian State, originally an NC Central transfer. Last year, he played 506 snaps, and he played well. He's very good as a run defender. 65% completion percentage. On-ball production leaves a little bit to be desired. And then last candidate, Devontae Golden Nelson from Akron. Started last year, 62% completion, 4 PBUs, but 375 yards in his coverage. I think opposite Coates, you see Carter, Chambers, and Golden Nelson, probably battle for that other job. In the slot, I think you're looking at Fred Perry and Jordan Scruggs. Fred Perry's from Jacksonville State. He's a 3-year starter. He led Jacksonville State with tackles, 110 of them, had 10 tackles for loss somehow too. In coverage, he left a little bit to be desired. 81% completion, 442 yards, 3 touchdowns, only 1 PBU. But if he can't get there, Jordan Scruggs is a good player too, from JUCO, then to South Alabama. Started immediately with South Alabama. 4th on the team in tackles with 69. 61% completion for 381 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 PBUs. Corner, it is nowhere to go but up, even if it's from like 129 to 110. I mean, they cannot be worse. These players are decent overall as well. I think the high-end talent is a little lacking, but man, at least they're proven. And I mean, it's just a different coaching staff. You'd think they'd get more out of them because of that. At safety, they do return former Jacksonville State transfer Kekora Tarnu. Tarnu took a step back last year after he was very good with Jacksonville State. He did make 35 tackles, but 81% completion was a lot to be desired. They do add transfers. Justin Harrington, the former Oklahoma 4-star, spent last year with Washington, comes in. Only 279 snaps through 4 years is a problem. They also bring in Darian Lewis from Akron. He is a 3-year starter. His best year came in 2023 where he had 75 tackles. Last year he had 74, so not a big step back. In coverage, though, 68% completion, 427 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 PBUs. That was a step back. If it's not one of them, Jordan Walker from Chattanooga comes in. 3 years of starting experience in the FCS. He was very good down there. They bring in William Davis from Division II. He played at Virginia Union. They also have 138 snaps from sophomore Israel Boyce, who played all those as a freshman. There's just no way the secondary can be worse. And honestly, I think the story with the defense is they're better at a lot of position groups. Probably not by a ton, but I think you are looking at more of an average defense than just a putrid one. And then they situationally took players back from last year's team, especially on the defensive line, which should help. Offense, they're just going to look way different. Their O-line is going to be worse. There's no way around that, but hopefully schematically they can paper over some of this, plus the transfers. Running back is a very good position, as is quarterback. I think they will be able to execute the offense. As for kicker, they bring in a transfer, Ethan Head from Tulane. I think he's going to battle RJ Kosan. Neither of them have been very good or very experienced. Head from Tulane has been the kickoff guy there. He was 18 of 21 on extra points, which is alarming, and 4 of 5 on field goals with none beyond 40 yards. So we'll see what they get on special teams. Not optimistic, but let's take a look at the West Virginia schedule, the most important factor in this team's success, as it is with every team. I always do that. There we go. Starting off, Robert Morris, road trip to Ohio, which isn't easy, but they should beat Ohio. They're better than Ohio. Then you've got the backyard brawl against Pitt, who's a middling team. I mean, that game is always close, but I think on paper this year, talent-wise, it's going to be close as well. You don't have a very clear advantage. They could be 3-0. They could be 2-1. That should be the expectation at the least is 2-1. But you get Pittsburgh at home. Hopefully you can knock off that team. It's a reasonable non-con. In conference, they do face a lot of the good teams. You're playing Texas Tech, Arizona State, Colorado, TCU, and Utah. The only teams who dodge towards the top are Baylor and Kansas State. But on the schedule, you still have weaker games against Houston, UCF, BYU, and Kansas to various degrees of rebuild. I think they're going to be an underdog to all of those good Big 12 teams we mentioned: Texas Tech, Arizona State, Colorado, TCU, and Utah. Now, some of them are at the end of the year. A lot can happen in that time. Actually, your last two games are Arizona State and Texas Tech, the two best teams in this conference. But I think the ceiling for this team is a bowl. I mean, they could be better than Houston, UCF, BYU, and Kansas. I think it's just going to come down to some of those games are early in the year. How do you handle like a road trip to Kansas in week 4, who you're probably a little better than, but everything is new here. Kansas has like some continuity with their team. I think this is looking like a season between 4 and 6 wins in first year under Rich Rod with a ceiling for a little bit more. I mean, this team is competitive in this conference. They are not a team towards the bottom of the Big 12. As far as our overall power rankings go, we actually have them more towards middle of the pack. But with change, it could take a while to come together. And then that looks a little tricky with, honestly, probably 3 of your toughest games coming in your final 3 games. But that'll do it for us. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions or comments or want to see a team, let me know. Otherwise, we'll be back again soon. Good luck. We will see you later.